Right. Okay. I think we can start. So, good morning again to everyone, and welcome to our webinar for today, which is actually a continuation on a series of webinars that we've been doing in sharing with you about SolarWinds' latest release, specifically on Orion 2020.2. So, these are focused on new features that which we would really encourage you to review and take advantage of. Our session today is all about modern dashboards in Orion 2020.2, which is a very exciting release, I would say, for me, with the introduction of new modern dashboarding frameworks, which we will show to you later on. So I hope everyone could see my screen okay. So my name is Mon. I'm the sales manager here at Prosperon Networks, and I'm joined today by one of my colleagues, Edgemel, a senior engineer here at Prosperon, who will explain and demonstrate to us how to use these dashboard data metrics to make smarter and more accurate decisions within SolarWinds Orion 2020.2. So, a sunny good morning to you, Edgemel. How are you today?
Hello, good morning, Mon. Thank you. Thanks.
Okay, cool. So, before we start, I just would like to give you a quick overview of what our agenda would be in the next hour. So, first one would be a quick introduction of Prosperon, who we are, what we do, and how we help customers like you embark on their SolarWinds journey. So, it's not, I won't really take much of your time. So, I will be aiming for about 5 to 10 minutes for this particular section. And then we have some slides to just really recap about the main features within the 2020.2 release, which we've actually shown you in the previous webinar. And then there's also a slide as an introduction about what's all about the modern dashboards in the latest release. And then, of course, the chunk of the webinar for today would be a live demonstration care of Edgemel. And then there's a Q&A section at the end. But before we start, just a few housekeeping items that I'd like to cover. So there will be a poll questions along the way. So I would really encourage you to participate. And also at the right panel of your screen, there is an opportunity for you to actually ask questions in real time. We can answer them once you've actually provided the question, or we will be answering them at the end of the presentation. And lastly, of course, there will be a recording of this webinar, which will be made available after the live event on our YouTube channel. Just search for Prosper Networks, and then also a link to the recording of this webinar will be made available to you who have attended, and also to those who are not able to join us today. Cool. So, who are Prosperon Network? So, we've been in the industry for quite some time. So, we've been a SolarWinds partner for over 15 years. A big chunk of our offering is actually professional services. So, our team is composed of certified and experienced consultants and engineers who has been responsible for many projects, and some of them even security cleared. So if you have any projects that you feel you need a partner that has a security cleared engineers, we are able to help you. So we've delivered over 700 days last year. So these engineers are also SolarWinds certified professionals, and we are proud of the fact that we have been awarded the Technical Excellence Award by SolarWinds in terms of delivering our SolarWinds projects, and it's actually a true testament of our dedication, commitment on the quality of projects that make our projects very successful. So we are also an active contributor to TWAC, as many of you. This is an online community forum for SolarWinds customers and users. And we also take pride in supporting our customers. Last year, we've delivered or managed about 800 support cases. Okay. So the next slide shows you about Prosperon's professional services offering. So many of you may have worked with Prosperon in some of your projects, SolarWinds projects. But for those who are not familiar, so we do provide professional services and the first one would be consultancy. So for example, you've been perhaps using SolarWinds for a while now, and you would really want to optimize the platform either from a performance or usability perspective. So you could also be in a situation where you're not really happy with the way the SolarWinds solution has been designed and is looking for a partner like us, Prosperon, to help you with some consultancy work. So we do also work with a lot of projects wherein they want to look into introducing more automation via, systems integration or any API integration. We do support you on those journey. And we also provide training. So we do have structured training courses that we deliver on a regular basis. It's actually an on-site one done by our premises, but due to the current COVID situation, all of our services and even consultancy are being delivered remotely. And I hope it's also the same case with your company. So we also provide health checks for those of you that are actually are existing or the renewal is actually with Prosperon. As part of your maintenance services, we do provide it as a value-added service, which is the health check, which is I think is a very very critical component of ensuring that your platform is stable, you're leveraging on newer capabilities and features that SolarWinds releases, and we also do quite a lot of projects in terms of helping customers upgrade to the latest versions, which I think is very timely right now in terms of our topic because this is a major release that all of you customers should be leveraging on in terms of the newer functionalities. Okay, so we know that a lot of customers are not really using, if I put on my account manager hat, I've had a lot of discussions with customers wherein they're saying to me, Mon, we really want to leverage on, the newer functionalities, but we don't really have, the resources or even the time to actually do the upgrade. So we are actually there to help you. And I think where our expertise comes in is, you probably be in a situation wherein it's very tempting to when I say, well, for example, a new version comes out, it's very tempting to actually move ahead and keep upgrading the platform. But we'd like to suggest that before any major upgrades are performed, it's important or it's critical that you actually get a baseline of where you see yourselves currently with what you have and what you actually plan in the future. So that's where health check is actually designed to give you that current assessment, and it will actually complement with the workshop discussions about what are your future plans in the next, say, for example, 2 to 3 years, so we can help you reach those milestones. So we are here to help you on that one. We've shown this in our previous webinars for those who has actually attended our webinar, recent webinar. So just really recapping to you and showing to you what are, the platform feature, Orion platform feature updates from version 2017.1 to the current one, which is actually 2020.2. Okay. So now we go to our very first poll for today, which I hope everyone would participate. So, which SolarWinds Orion platform version are you on? Right. So we're just waiting for some guys to actually put in their poll, but I could see here that over 50%, actually at 56%, they're relatively up to date. So from version 2019.4 to 50, actually 57%, version 2019.4 from to 2019.2. So relatively up to date, but 30% is actually very 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 good figure that 30 about 30% are actually running the newest and the best version, which is actually 2020.2. So there's still a couple of attendees that are still on the older versions, but very minimal at 9%, um, and 4%. So it's actually there's still time, and I would encourage those that are lagging behind to actually update to the latest versions. We're here for like a partner like Prosperon to actually help you on those journeys. So, but good stuff so far. Okay, so now I proceed with my next slide, which is all about our focus for today, the modern dashboards within SolarWinds Orion 2020.2. So um, the Orion platform team at SolarWinds is actually very proud to announce that a new with the introduction of a new dashboard framework. So this data driven and highly performant dashboard framework would actually allow users with greater level of flexibility over how the dashboards are actually being displayed. So this is the first iteration of the new dashboard framework, which will evolve, of course, as you everyone would know about working with SolarWinds over the years, which will evolve into subsequent releases. So I think the key thing here is the feedback for this particular functionality to evolve. So I would encourage you to send any feedback you may have, positive or negative, in terms of, so you can do that via Thwack, or you can liaise it through your account manager in Prosperon, or through your account manager at SolarWinds as well. So that's the key thing here is feedback. I think it's you probably know over the years how these features are actually being developed by SolarWinds. So I would encourage you to do that.
Yep, I can add at this point,
Yeah,
Mon. This is
yeah,
really important because SolarWinds knows that this is the initial version for that new framework, and they
yeah.
know that they need to improve this. And your feedback is important to direct SolarWinds here to develop in the correct way in order to provide best solution for your dashboard design.
And I think also just to pick up on this one, so I've actually it's my first time to actually see this particular view and screen, and also the introduction of this dashboard framework. So based on Edgemel, you working on a lot of projects, you're one of our more senior engineers. So what do you think is the main benefit of having this particular dashboard framework?
First of all, first good thing is it is not replacing existing dashboards. So when you upgrade your platform, you are not losing any custom dashboards that you created before. And when you start to use that custom modern dashboard framework, you can see in that screenshot, we don't have any column-based limitation. There is no size limitation. We have different scaling options for each widget, and we have some special widgets. For example, we can create pie charts, donut charts using that modern dashboard, and we have a KPI visibility on top, which is also, I believe, really useful for management dashboards or for your wallboards. Um, so it is not changing your existing dashboards, but this can be considered as an alternative way and an additional feature that you can use to provide better visibility for your data in SolarWinds.
Cool. Thank you so much, Edgemel. So I have actually covered, which actually brings me to my next slide, which is actually just summarizing what are the modern dashboard features all about. And so Edgemel will show this to you later on in terms of how quickly you can adapt to this particular with this different with this feature. But just to summarize, so as what Edgemel have said, there's really no change to the existing classic dashboard. So upgrading your platform will not affect your existing dashboards. But of course, in any case that, as I've said earlier, if you want a partner like Prosperon to actually give you some best practice consultancy advice on this one, please feel free to reach out to your account manager or through us or to our consultants. Item number two is actually the introduction of new and modern widget types with this KPI, time series and table widgets. And also item number three is actually the introduction of grid-based layout instead of column-based layout, which actually allows you to have more flexibility in terms of scaling and positioning of your widgets. The Seek SQL database gathering within the user interface design option has actually also been improved, which is actually more easy to build and customize. And of course, the last one would be in terms of dashboard ownership option. So you're actually able to set the settings in terms of user workspace with public or private visibility. So for me, right, if I put on my account manager hat, actually, Edgemel, it looks like item number two and three are actually the ones that appeals to me because I've heard this many times from some of my customers. So what do you think if you have like one key advantage of using this item number 2 and 3, or implementing these features? What do you think it is before we actually proceed to the next poll?
Yep. For item number 3, flexible scaling, in new dashboard framework, we can define our widgets in different locations. They are independent from each other, so we can define 3 different columns for different columns, and we can define custom sizing for these widgets independently.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it is really useful for us to define exact location for these widgets. And for widget types, currently this modern dashboard comes with 4 different widget types, but in future releases we expect more additional widget types. Especially KPI and proportional widget types are interesting. We will
Mm-hmm.
look at in detail that how we can configure and how they can be beneficial for us to show high-level overview data for SolarWinds.
Great. So thanks, Edgemel. So before we do into the live demonstration, there's just a poll question, poll number 2. So do you have any custom dashboards in SolarWinds? So what we're actually meant by this one is actually on the classic dashboards. Is that right, Edgemel?
Exactly. So we are just asking if you had any custom dashboards using legacy dashboard definition method in SolarWinds, which we know as summary views. So do you have any custom summary views here?
Thanks, Edgemel. So we're just gathering the responses right now. Give it a few more seconds, but I'm actually seeing that majority of the attendees for today are actually have custom dashboards that they've actually implemented. Um, that's actually more than 60%, and then followed by less than 20% about they do have some custom dashboards, but it's just very minimal. And the last one at 14% is actually they don't use any dashboards at all, which is I think there's some room for review, and also a good opportunity right now to actually take advantage of using the use of dashboards. So with that said, I will now we now go to the more exciting part. The boring part is actually finished now with my probably my side, my sales piece. So I'm not gonna hand it over to Edgemel for the live demonstration, and then I'll be supporting him in terms of the questions. So before we proceed, Edgemel, there's just a follow up question for here in terms of now, in the interest of time, we'll do it later on. We'll answer some of the questions. We'll allocate about 5 to 10 minutes later on if it's all right. Okay. So Edgemel,
Yeah.
take it away.
All right. Thank you, Mon. So we will be looking at SolarWinds user interface to check that new feature. But as I mentioned here, I hope everybody can see my screen now. We are looking at latest version of SolarWinds, but we have a classic dashboard, a summary view we created before. But as you see, after upgrading our platform, we can still see our summary dashboard, classic dashboard. So there is no change for custom dashboards, custom views that we created before. So we can continue to use existing ones. But when we look at the latest version, now we have a new link, Manage Dashboards item. So instead of going to settings and clicking on Manage Views, now we have Manage Dashboards area in SolarWinds, where we can manage both previously defined classic views, classic dashboards, and we can also define and manage modern dashboards. If you check filters here, we have owner, visibility, and version. If I pick classic, as you see, owner and visibility attributes are not applicable for our previously defined classic views. We can still create classic dashboards. We can pick any of them. We can duplicate, we can edit, we can delete them using that management page. But owner and visibility attributes are not applicable for classic dashboards. But when we consider modern dashboards, if I look at modern dashboards here, sorry for that. Let's pick modern here. As you see, we have different owners and different visibility options. So when we have a modern dashboard, now when we create it, it is assigned to our user account. So that user account or other SolarWinds administrators can edit a modern dashboard. And when you create a modern dashboard, it is created as private, but you can change this if you want to allow other users to see that modern dashboard that you created. So now these dashboards can also be seen as a user workspace. So if I select any of these dashboards, if I have SolarWinds administrator rights, I can see all modern dashboards. But if a user doesn't have that right, that user can only see his or her modern dashboard definitions here. In addition to standard duplicate, edit, and read options, now we have set visibility, set owner options, and to change visibility settings and owner settings for those dashboards. So let's start with creating a modern dashboard. If we want to define a new modern dashboard in SolarWinds, we need to click on Add Modern Dashboard here, and we have to give a name for our dashboard. Let's say Webinar Dashboard as the name, and we can take this option so we can immediately open dashboard for editing. If I click on Create, now I see an empty dashboard, webinar dashboard that I created. Now I can use drag to create a new widget button here in order to populate widgets to this dashboard. So I can just move items to define my widgets here. I can add more in different locations, but keep in mind when we populate this, we need to configure them in order to start seeing data. So if I select, for example, finish configuring this, it provides list of all available widgets in SolarWinds. So I can pick one of the widgets currently defined in SolarWinds and I can clone it. I can clone an existing one from another dashboard to this dashboard. But if I want to create a widget from scratch, in this case, I can filter source dashboard for empty widgets. So if I select empty widgets here, I can see 4 different widget types that I can use in this modern dashboard. We have KPI widget, proportional widget, table widget, and Timeseries widget. And based on our configuration settings, we also have a preview area here. So in this preview area, you can see your chains. So at that point, I would like to define a KPI widget. So I can select KPI widget here. If I click on create widget, it will define an empty widget. So before creating it, I can click on customize to provide attributes for that widget. So first of all, I need to specify my title, subtitle. I can define a URL and description for my widget. KPI widgets are showing single numerical value. So if you remember the screenshot, it is just showing single numerical data. So it is useful, for example, to show your current availability ratio for your applications, for your servers. You can show, for example, number of down servers, number of active alerts. Such kind of important numbers can be shown in that custom KPI widget. So you can define a title and you can say, for example, I want to show not availability here. And I can define a subtitle or I can ignore it. I can provide a URL here. It can be an internal URL on SolarWinds. So when you provide this, there will be a link icon on top right corner of the widget. So you can navigate to related page, or you can define an external link. If you want to access that external link from SolarWinds, you can specify description. I'm just skipping those parts now. I can define my value by clicking on add new value here. Here I have value area and I have to specify my attributes. So I have to say, for example, which label I want to show, which units I want to show. Then I can define data model and I can define threshold for my value. For example, I want to show availability. I can say that one here. And if you check review part, you can see when I populate here, I can see it in preview area. And I can say unit will be percentage. So I can provide percent sign. And I can define a background color. I can select one of the available colors here. For example, I can say show this in green. And then I can define my data model using a custom Civical, custom SolarWinds query. In this area, we have two options. We can create the query using graphical query builder, or we can define this using our previously defined query. I'm used to use SolarWinds Civical Studio, which comes with Orion SDK. So you can install this Civical Studio. You can connect to your SolarWinds with a user account, and then you can see all available objects here on that screen. I hope to see it will be loaded here. I can see which objects that I can run that query. Civical structure is similar to SQL, but it is executed on SolarWinds information service. So it is not touching database directly. It is running on SolarWinds side. So it is more secure. And at the same time, when you upgrade your SolarWinds platform, your previous queries will also be supported in SolarWinds. If I return back to user interface, as I want to define a query which returns not availability value. We will look at using graphical query builder, but that query is a little bit advanced to define this using graphical query builder. So I select hand edit Civical query. And then I can click on edit and I can provide my query here. Similar to Civical Studio that I showed before, we have objects here, so we can navigate to related objects, or I can search for object. I know node data is defined under Orion nodes. I can pick that one, and for example, I can say import Civical, so I can get an example query which returns all available attributes, top 5 attributes. So if I click on show records, it returns top 5 items. It will return top 5 items from Orion nodes object. So using that structure, I can define my query, but for node availability, I just want to copy and paste my previously defined query here, which calculates node availability based on node status. So it is getting from Orion nodes status information, and it is calculating this to show as a percentage. And when I click on show records, I can see current availability ratio. I don't have any down nodes currently, so that's the reason we have 100% availability ratio. For KPI widget, we have to return single numerical value. This is a requirement. And when we select save model, now as you see, we have availability ratio in our widget. Now at that point, I can save it to create that widget, but it may not be a good idea to show this with green background color if availability ratio is not 100%. So you can define thresholds here. You can use custom thresholds and you can define custom threshold values. For example, here we see that it automatically defines 0, 0. We will update this. As the current value is greater than 0, we see critical level background color, red color here. If I change this to 200, as you see, it is showing yellow color. For availability, if value is higher, it is better. So in this case, we need to check this box in order to use these threshold values when it is lower than specified threshold value. Now I can say it should be shown as warning if availability ratio is less than or equal to 99. It should be shown as critical if it is less than or equal to 95. And as you see, if my value is over these threshold values, green background color will be kept in SolarWinds. So I can click on create widget here. So now we have a node availability widget in SolarWinds, modern dashboard that we created. I can use that approach for different kind of data. So let's look at another one. I would like to configure that one. I can select this time. I can see my webinar dashboard and I can clone my previously defined widget, or I can still use empty widgets area and I can create another KPI widget from scratch. If I use this and if I select custom here, in similar way, I can define title and description. Now I can select, for example, I would like to create a KPI widget to show current active alert count. And then I can specify, I can ignore subtitle, URL, description, or maybe I can say I would like to show this by alert severity. And then I can add value. So I can say I would like to show alerts that are in critical severity. I can define unit. I can ignore this, or I can say it will show number of alerts. And then I can define my data model. I'm not setting background color now. We will discuss this later. So in this area, I'm selecting hand-edit SwiftQuery query again, and I would like to provide my query for critical alerts. So as you see, I'm just providing a query, and I can see that currently we have 3 critical alerts in SolarWinds. If I save it, I can see critical items here. Now I can add more values. So if I click on add new value, as you see it created second frame. I can do the same for serious level alerts. I can use number of alerts again. I can define my data model using custom query. And I just need to provide correct query. As you see, I'm using different severity value to get series alerts. As you see, we have 17 series alerts. If I save it, I can add another one, and I can say this time I would like to see warning level alerts. And I can use same unit again. And for data model, I'm just using my query. And I can see we have 29 warning level alerts. So this query returns number of active warning level alerts. If I save it, now as you see, we have 3 different values in the same widget. We can see number of critical, series, and warning level alerts. We can correct that one. They have standard. As you see, we don't have any background color. So we can specify background color for our items. For example, for series one, I can select and I can show I would like to see orange as background color. And for critical and warning, I can select related color coding here. But the problem is, if I want to show, for example, red for critical, I cannot use red because it is used for thresholds. I can select maybe pink, as you see. And for warning, I can select something similar to yellow here. But I don't know if these are giving the correct color codes for these ones. So if you want to use real red or real yellow, you can use thresholds here. And you can say, for example, I want to use custom thresholds for critical alerts. And I want to say if current value is greater than or equal to 0, which is the case always. So we will have at least 0 critical alerts. We can see that red background. I can just edit that one like this. So we are just forcing now to use red background color for critical using threshold approach. We can do the same for warning. I can say use custom thresholds, and I can say use 0 for warning level threshold, but for critical level, we can give a big number here, which will not be seen. So we can see yellow color as the background. If I click on create widget, now we can see number of critical, serious, and warning alerts. We can change sizing for our widget in order to use correct location. So we can change location for our widgets. So these are examples for KPI widgets. We can use the same approach to create other type of widgets. I can just drag and drop here. I can select finish configuring. I can select empty widgets again. And this time I can pick, for example, table widget. Using table widget, I can show not status, for example. I can customize it, and then I can define my attributes for that widget. So, for example, I want to show, let's say, not CPU and memory status. So we can show current not CPU and memory status. We can also add with count of interfaces. We can also add number of interfaces. And in data model, we can specify our data selection method. In this area, again, I can use hand-edit SQL query, but let's look at graphical query builder this time, because in this table, we can list items and we can use filtering, or we can pick correct attributes to show. I can select use graphical query builder. I can click on edit. And now I can pick the row type. I can pick the object that I want to create this table. By default, SolarWinds provides 6 common objects here: application, component, group interface, node, volume, but you can also see other detailed objects. As we will create this in node level, I can select node. As you see, it will get data from Orion nodes. And at the next step, I can drag and drop attributes from left side to right side to use as my data source. So here, for example, I can say I want to see node name, which is defined in caption area. And I can see a preview for this. And I can see a SQL query structure, which is automatically generated by SolarWinds. I can pick additional attributes. I want to see current CPU load. I want to see current memory usage. And I can add more. For example, I can select show advanced entities and properties, which will load all available entities here. If I scroll down here, I can see all available attributes for node object. So, for example, I can get status if I want to see status information. Or I can get, for example, if I go to details URL, I can say I want to see details URL for my node. I can preview it and I can check my query structure.
Edgemel, Edgemel is one here. So before you
Yeah,
proceed, because I think it's actually related, there were some questions already being raised, but I think this is actually very specific to this topic. So there's a question from Adrian about resizing of individual frames within a widget. I think you've actually answered that, but if you have time later on once we finish this, can you just explain this particular functionality about the ability, if it's possible, to resize individual frames within a widget. Yeah.
yep, sure,
Okay,
sure,
cool.
I can show this. Yeah. So here we have related attributes. We can also link data with different objects. For example, if we want to get, for example, I mentioned I want to see interface count. We can see links for other objects. Each node may have interfaces that are currently populated in SolarWinds. There is a one-to-many relationship between nodes and interfaces. I can also add interface caption here. And at that time, we have that select box. As we have one-to-many relationship, we can say we want to see count of interfaces. And we can get number of interfaces currently monitored for these objects. We can change number of items to see. We can say, for example, we want to see data for at most 100 items, so it can return all items. So we defined our data model here to get these attributes. So at that point, I can save my model. We have data model selected. Now we can add columns to our table. We can select which columns to show. So I can select here label, and I can say I want to show node information, node name information. I can define a width. I'm just skipping it now. And I can define property. Without any formatting, I can select, for example, I want to see node caption field in this area. And it provides standard text information for node attribute, node column. You can use format. We have different format options. For such kind of object names, it is better to use Orion entity. When we select Orion entity, we can define an icon option. We can say, I would like to see entity type and status, for example. Let's pick that one. And then we can specify mappings for entity type, status, details, URL, and label. I can select entity type. I can look at useful icon. For that entity, we can use network device icon. For status, we can get status from status attribute that we defined. Details URL can be mapped from details URL field. And in label area, we can say we will use caption for the label. As you see, now we have node column with status icon and link to related object in SolarWinds. We can add more columns. So I can say add new column, and I can select I want to see current CPU usage. I can define a width, something like that, 150 pixels. I can provide my formatting. In this format, as CPU is a number, I can use simple number, which will show just numerical value, or I can use threshold value. If SolarWinds has a predefined threshold for this, we can use it. So if I select threshold value, we have two different visualization options, linear bar chart or just show the value option. Let's leave it as linear bar chart. We can use CPU load attribute will be used for the value. And for threshold, we can see all available thresholds in SolarWinds. We just need to pick the related one, CPU load for node. And as you see, using linear bar chart, we can see current CPU load information. We can do the same for memory. I can add quickly another one, and I can say, I want to see memory here. Let's give another sizing for this. We can define property formatting using same approach, threshold value. This time we can select percent memory used, and for threshold, we can select memory usage. Now we can see memory usage information in the same table. We would like to show number of interfaces. Now I can pick something like that, interface count. And then I can select formatting. For interface count, it is not meaningful to apply any threshold, so we can leave it as simple number. so which will return just single numerical value. We can use related attribute again. And we can define a prefix icon or suffix text here. So I can find an icon related to interfaces. It should be under network interface. So we can see an interface icon. In preview mode, we can see those details. If I'm happy with that selection, I can just click on Create Widget. Now we have related table. We can expand it. As you see, we have sizing options. We can change sizing for our widgets here, and they are independent from each other. We can size them differently for each of them, and we can select the area that we want to show those tables. So this is an example of using standard graphical user interface filtering for tables. But we have some limitations in that graphical user interface query. So we cannot, for example, order items based on CPU or memory. If I want to get an order information, then I need to create custom SQL query. For example, if I want to get top 10 nodes for memory usage, I can drag and create another table here. And in the configuration area, instead of creating from scratch, I can use my webinar dashboard here, and I can select I want to use my previously defined node CPU status. If I create it, then I have just clone of this one. It will be updated. Yeah, we can see those details here. We can change sizing for that one. Now I can use edit widget. If I want to sort data for, let's say, memory, I can change my data model. So in data model area, I can say I want to use hand edit SQL query, and that's good thing. It keeps existing query, which comes from graphical user interface. We can change this. I want to use for top 10, and I want to define an order by option using that approach. We can validate it, and we can save it. I did a mistake. I had to sort this in descending order, so I'm just updating my query. I'm saving it, and I can see now nodes listed by memory. Now I can change settings. For example, if I don't want to see CPU, I can delete it, or I can say do not show this column. I can do the same for example, for interface count. So I can just leave node and memory here. And for memory, you can also change settings. For example, instead of linear bar chart, you can say just show the value if you want to see value here. And let's do one last thing. We can also rename it. We can say top 10 nodes by memory. So if I click on done editing, now we have two different tables, two different KPI widgets in our dashboard. Now I can change the location and change sizing for them. As you see, I can put information like that. And I can add more widgets. I can add another one here. And I can say, for example, I would like to add this time another type of widget. I can select empty widget, and I can select I want to see proportional widget now. When I select customize, let me quickly populate data for this. For example, I can see nodes by status. We can select chart type. We have 4 different types here: pie, donut, vertical, or horizontal bar options. And we can keep legend information at the right side, or we can remove it. And then we can select data model. Now I'm just selecting hand-edit SQL query. And this query returns items grouped by status. So for each status, we have current number of nodes. If I save it, as you see, it is showing a pie chart, but legend part is not correct. So we need to change. So for value field, we can leave it as count items, but for category field, we can say we would like to use status. And for data formats, we can use custom to specify icon and color mapping, or SolarWinds has a predefined Orion status data format. We can use it. And as you see, we can get nodes by status pie chart. We can change this. We can show it in do not to see current total number. We can use vertical. So we have different options here that we can apply for that widget type. So if I click on create, I can change sizing for this. So I can apply something like this. So we can change sizing and we can change location for our items by just moving those items. We don't need to put them in same column. We don't need to use those mappings here. So that is kind of example for node status. Maybe I can define another example for proportional widget quickly. I can select that approach. I can select another empty widget for proportional widget, and then I can edit it. I would like to show alerts by severity. Let's select horizontal bar, and I have a custom query where I can get different status icons. So let me define my query here. It is returning number of items for different severity levels, and we are also defining color and status icon columns explicitly. So we see horizontal bar, we can change settings. So for category fields, we can use severity. And as you see, for different severity levels, we have items. For icon mapping, we can use status icon. So we can see related icon. And we can also get color mapping from our query. So we can change colors for our query. We can save it. And now we have alerts by severity. So these are the common 3 widget types we can use in a modern dashboard. As the last thing, we also have a fourth option,
Well,
slides
just
here.
in the interest of time, because we only have 4 minutes left, and I know we wouldn't have any time for the questions, but we'll try to answer them individually
Mhm.
to you. So we'll take note of the questions, and your account manager, or we will get back to you in terms of the responses. But just be conscious of the time. Actually, we only have 4 minutes left, and we need to
All right.
recap this as well. Yep. Thank you.
Thanks. I just want to show basically that time series widget. It is just using your existing perf stack projects. So instead of updating title here, I can just show you. You just need to select your defined perf stack projects. So I can just select, for example, one of the CPU load I created before. On perf stack, I can create it as a time series chart. I can change time period later, and I can put this, I can add more time series charts to populate perf stack data. We will start to see perf stack information on that dashboard. So we can use these 4 different widget types in SolarWinds. I believe I covered everything related to new modern dashboard. We expect new widget types, but currently these are the widget types we can use in SolarWinds. So,
Well,
Mom, I need your
yeah,
help for because
yeah, no, that looks very appealing to me, and I think it gives me, if I was, say, for example, a member of a senior management team, that these are the types of dashboards that I would like to see. When I come in the morning, I would have a very good dashboard of what's actually happened to my network, say within the last X hours. So that's great. So I think because we have some questions that were actually posted in, and we only have 2 minutes left. So what we're gonna do, guys, is to take note of your questions, and we'll try our very best to respond to you in the next couple of days or hours with a response. Specifically to your question, because we only have 2 minutes left, and I wanted to ask Edgemel about seeing all of these great features within the dashboard. Um, what do you think would be a good starting point, a practical tip in terms of for the ones that were wanting to actually leverage on this, or the ones that would like to add some of the dashboards within their existing dashboards? What's a practical starting point for them?
I would just suggest this. As you say, especially KPI widget is really useful to see high-level overview for your current items. So you can use this especially for management dashboards to give an idea for overall status for your network infrastructure or for your server infrastructure. And these modern dashboards can be used also for um, wallboards. So you can define this in a wallboard and you can show, because when you look at wallboard from some distance, you can still see these background colors. So you can define thresholds for these background colors and you can just focus on problems easily on your wallboards. I can
Okay.
just say your management dashboard and wallboard can be a
Yeah.
good starting point.
Definitely. So I think so some of the questions that were raised here was all about, and some were answered already, specifically on the widgets. And also, Sil, you have a question posted to me. I'll reach out to you separately on that one. But I think overall, this was a great session. We will, as I said earlier, a recording of this would be available in our YouTube channel, and also will be sent to you individually via a link for you to go to the YouTube channel for a recording of this. But otherwise, I think it's a very great session with you, Edgemel, today. I mean, personally, also for me, I learned quite a lot. I like seeing colors, and I like seeing dashboards, neatly presented in there. So I think I find it very useful. And I think it's the same also with the other attendees. So we do also have some upcoming webinars in the next couple of weeks. So I do hope that we would also still join us again. And please feel free to reach out to us, to your account managers here at Prosperon, if you have any follow-up questions following this webinar. But otherwise, thank you, Edgemel, for your time today. And also thank you to you guys for attending our webinar session for today. So great session with everyone, Edgemel. So thank you so much, and we'll see you in another webinar that is upcoming. Have a
Thank
great
you all.
day. Thank you. Bye.